the plaintiff
Anything hearsay.
What if anything is not the cure-all is sustained?
And as a result of that consultation, what did you learn about your nose?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
I'm not asking her to tell what they said.
Yeah, I'll sustain the objection.
I'm trying. What, if anything,
Okay, welcome back, guys, to Mama to Two Howries. This is part 1 of Elaine's PowerPoint going over all the incidents that the UK judge said more likely than not happened, and that the son could have relied on these incidences and the factual findings of all these things. And so it's all going to be split up into parts, but what we're going to be doing is showing the slide of the factual findings of the UK and showing evidence that goes with that incident and that debunks most of it. So hopefully you enjoy, and let's get into this video. Okay, on this first slide we have two things. It is the factual findings of the UK High Court for the Hicksville incident that was in June 2013. Mr. Depp assaulted Miss Heard, including throwing drinking glasses at her and ripping her dress in a jealous rage. 2, Depp admitted to breaking a wall sconce. And 3, a witness testified that she heard screaming and shouting, and the morning after there was broken glass and pieces of fabric strewn everywhere. So in this first part, this is what Justice Nichols found in the U Court case, that he believed that this incident happened more likely than not. And Depp did admit to breaking a wall sconce. That's about all he admitted to. Nobody has seen the dress and the nightgowns from all the different incidents. There has been nothing produced of the actual nightgown or dress itself, nor has there been any pictures of it, which is kind of shocking. And I don't know what witness testified that they had heard it, but those are the things that apparently are factual according to the UK. Now going into the second part, which Heard's team is saying intentionally withheld and inadvertently disclosed text in the same time frame. The text was from Depp to Paul Bettany, his British friend. Let's burn Amber. Let's drown her before we burn her. I will F her sick, burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she is dead. That is our thing that kind of stems from Monty Python. They cannot claim that this is an abuse thing because Amber wasn't going to see this, nor had she ever seen it. The first time she had ever seen it was when documents were pulled for the UK court. They just put it in this June 2013 because that just happened to be when the Hicksville incident was, so this is just another incident that happened in that time frame. So let's move on to see what we have that goes against that. Okay, so here's the Monty Python clip that will help figure out that Bettany and Depp were kind of referring to when saying burn the witch. There's this clip, and then there are some other things that go with drowning a witch, because if she drowns, she's a witch. If she floats, she's not. But it's something old that people used to do during like the Salem witch trials and things like that. But it just shows that these are words. We've all said horrible things about our ex or even our current person sometimes when we are really, really mad, or maybe we've gotten close to breaking up and things. We've said things and vented to our friends. But would we say those to the person that we were with? No. We just are mad and we need to say things. And sometimes you have to laugh and turn it into a joke so that it maybe lightens the seriousness of how bad situations are. And I think that's what kind of went here, is Bettany was kind of trying to make light of it, and just be a friend to him while Depp is very mad at Amber. But without further ado, let's watch this clip. That is the clip for that. Let's move to the next point. Okay, here is the tweet that Elaine tried to use during trying to voir dire Morgan Knight, the Hicksville trailer owner or manager, and saying, oh, he watched the trial, or he's in contact with Elaine's nemesis, that umbrella guy, aka Tug. But Elaine calls him the umbrella guy, the umbrella man. She doesn't seem to get his name right, but she doesn't get many people's names right. But they redacted what that umbrella guy had said, and then Morgan Knight said that never happened. I was with them all night. Amber was the one acting all jealous and crazy. So that is the text from him, and why Johnny's lawyers contacted him and asked him if he would come in and testify about what he knew about that night and what he witnessed.
What, if anything, happened the next morning, Mr. Knight?
The innkeepers let me know that there was some damage in one of the trailers, and it happened to be Mr. Depp and Miss Heard's trailer. So I wanted to inspect the trailer because I was extremely worried. All those trailers that Steve and I worked on were like my babies, and the one they were staying in was the only one that was mostly original and restored 1950s style, and so I was very concerned.
So what did you observe when you went to the trailer?
I observed that there was a light sconce by the bathroom in the bedroom that had been broken off the wall, and a couple pieces were on the floor, and they were, and yeah, it was basically just broken. The light fixture was hanging on the wall still, except for the pieces that were on the floor.
Did you come to understand how that happened?
Objection, foundation, and
All right,
light.
foundation, I'll sustain as the foundation, how you knew.
Did you ask how the sconce was broken?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
How often do light fixtures in the trailers break?
They break pretty often. I mean, it's not like a usual thing, but things in the trailers generally get broken because it's all vintage trailers, and I would say as much as every couple weeks there's some incident of damage in one of the trailers. In this case, Mr. Depp had told me that.
Objection,
Sustain the
hearsay.
objection.
So anyway, yes.
Beyond the light fixture, was anything else in the trailer damaged?
No, everything else looks fine. In fact, we have something we call a piggy fee that we address to guests, that if there's anything what we call inconsiderate or unusually large messes, we charge them extra for it for a $25 an hour cleaning fee, but they did not receive one of those because everything outside of the light fixture looks fine.
And what was your reaction to seeing the damaged light fixture?
To be honest, I was relieved because it was not a big deal. I just there was already another light in the room, so I just tucked the wires in the wall until I had a few months later time to buy, it was matching sconce with another one in the room. So I had to, on eBay, find a matching pair that would fit there, and when I finally got around to it, I was able to get that and charge it to Nathan, whose credit card I had.
And what was your understanding of who Nathan was?
Mr. Depp's assistant.
Okay. And what did you charge Nathan or Mr. Depp for replacing that pair of light fixtures?
The pair came out to $62.
While you were on site, Mr. Knight, did you ever wear a mesh shirt?
No, I would absolutely never wear that.
At any time during Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's stay on the property, did you see Mr. Depp become physical with anyone?
I did
Objection,
not.
leading.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, that answer was,
I never saw Mr. Depp get physical with anyone when I saw him.
thank you, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, so that was Morgan Knight testifying about all that was messed up was the wall sconce, and it only cost $62 as opposed to the tens of thousands of dollars of damage. And as you see, Amber has the lovely smirk and thinks it's very funny. Okay, I'm putting this in here because it was in the UK thing. I don't know that it was a slide in Elaine's PowerPoint, but we're going to address it as well because it does pertain to what Justice Nichols determined about these things in the UK trial for Amber's credibility. It says, conviction in Australia for knowingly making false declarations regarding the important importation of the dogs to Australia. I cannot speak. The offense to which Ms. Heard pled guilty involved knowingly making a false statement. As Ms. Galligan said that was not a trivial offense, but its nature is so far removed from the evidence which Ms. Heard gave in this trial that its relevance for her credibility is marginal at most. So, lying to government officials in another country is does nothing to mess up credibility. According to Justice Nichols, it's not that big of a deal if you lie to them. I don't think that many would agree with that, and Australia most certainly doesn't agree with that, because she's being investigated for perjury from what she said in the UK trial as well as in the US trial, because it's not something small for Australia. So that was one of the things. And then we have alleged lie to the Department of Homeland Security regarding the status of Savannah McMillan. And Amber wrote, "My name is Amber Heard. I am a proud, lawful American citizen." I don't know about lawful. My conclusion that Ms. Heard did not lie to the Department of Homeland Security, nor do the emails which Kevin Murphy exhibits to his second witness statement, none of which demonstrate that Savannah was employed by or for the benefit of Ms. Heard while Savannah was in the USA. The allegation that she did, therefore, has no bearing on whether Ms. Heard is to be believed in the relation to her allegations that she was assaulted by Mr. Depp. The letter does not assist in resolving whether the Department of Homeland Security was lied to by Ms. Heard. So it's another example of her lying to Homeland Security. But because about lying about her being employed doesn't have anything to do with her being assaulted, in her words, it doesn't have any weight. And no, maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the assault and allegations that she has, but it does mess her credibility up. She is not credible, and these are two examples. Here is a letter to the Department of Homeland Security from September 2014. This comes from Kate James in her first witness statement that she gave in the UK trial. Paragraph 11, Amber asked me to send a letter she drafted to Homeland Security in September 2014. She had hired a girl called Savannah McMillan to work as her set assistant. Savannah, a British citizen, had been held in immigration and questioned about the frequency that she had been coming and going from the USA. Amber's letter falsely claimed that Savannah was just a friend and not an employee, so it was correct that she only had a tourist visa. Paragraph 12. In Amber's letter, she called it fraudulent that it was being alleged that Savannah was working for Amber unlawfully. She said that as Savannah's friend, she could say truthfully and unequivocally that this allegation is entirely false, and that she would like to go on the record saying that Savannah McMillan is a personal friend and to my knowledge has never worked unlawfully or otherwise in the United States or for me. I knew this, Kate James goes back to saying, I knew this to be untrue and that Amber was therefore lying to U.S. Immigration Department. I took a photograph of the letter and one of paycheck stubs from Amber to Savannah. A copy of these photographs were attached. And there are text messages as well that show Savannah doing work as an assistant. These are not things that a friend would just be setting up. And the fact that if she was a friend, she's letting her just go and take the hit for immigration. I mean, that could get her in a lot of trouble, and it could get her visas revoked and things like that. But Amber didn't care, because she doesn't care about anybody but herself, in my opinion. Moving on. This is an email from Amber to Kate James in regards to Pistol and Boo, which are the dogs, on Saturday, September 21st, 2013. Can you maybe help Kevin procure a slightly altered health doc that has their shots recorded as 2 days before, so they can all leave together on the 25th? Do we have a vet we could grease? Question mark. Connection? Question mark. And it was sent from her iPhone. So this right here, she is wanting somebody to, she wants somebody to find somebody that can alter legal documents so that she can just have her way. But, you know, it doesn't mean that she isn't credible, that you can, it doesn't mean that you can't believe her, because she just always has the truth on her side. Okay, now let's take a look at Kevin Murphy's first witness statement in the UK. And it says, Miss Heard's request for false statements in Australia proceedings. Paragraph 7. In October 2015, Miss Heard was subject to criminal proceedings in Australia for illegally smuggling her and Mr. Depp's dogs into the country. On October 11th and 12th, 2015, Miss Heard asked me to contact her former assistant, Miss Kate James, and asked Miss James to lie under oath to the Australian court prosecuting Miss Heard. Specifically, Miss Heard wanted Miss James to give false statements that Miss Heard was unaware that it would be illegal for her to bring her dogs into Australia. Miss Heard was aware that this was illegal because I had informed her repeatedly by email, telephone, and in person. I told Miss Heard that I was uncomfortable with giving a false statement to the court and that I would not ask Miss James to do so. Paragraph 8. Before asking me to request that Miss James give such a statement, Miss Heard forwarded me an email she had received from her lawyer, Marty Singer, dated October 11th, 2015. The email was stating, if you could get Kate to sign a statement, it would be helpful. I don't know what your relationship with her is at this time, since you fired her. You will have to be careful that she will cooperate and will not go public if you ask her not to be truthful. Miss Heard responded on that same date at 8:58 a.m. stating, Marty, I am waiting to hear back from you before I reached out to Kevin to liaise with Kate, A.H. A further email from Miss Heard to me copying Mr. Singer dated October 11th, 2015 at 4:02 p.m. stated, Kevin, do you think you could get her to do it? Although I did not attempt to solicit a false statement from Miss James, Miss Heard told me verbally shortly after that there was too much risk and that Miss James would go public with the truth regarding her knowledge that the dogs could not legally travel to Australia. So that is Kevin saying she knew. She wasn't unaware. She knew exactly what she was doing. And she was trying to get it to where she could just slide and just do whatever she wanted to do. And it didn't matter if it was going to be breaking any laws. Continuing to paragraph 9, shortly after Miss Heard's request that I obtain a false statement from Miss James, Miss Heard demanded verbally that I myself make a false witness statement regarding the dog's illegal entrance into Australia. I expressed that I was extremely uncomfortable with doing so to Miss Heard, which Miss Heard responded with the words to the effect of, "Well, I want your help on this. I wouldn't want you to have to worry about your job." Miss Heard's threatening language made me feel anxious and uneasy. As stated above, I had instructed Miss Heard on a number of occasions by email, telephone, and in person that she could not take the dogs to Australia because the relevant paperwork and permits were not complete and the required 10-day quarantine arrangement had not been put in place. I also informed her that the criminal penalties for knowingly smuggling animals into Australia without following the correct procedures could be severe. I further reminded her that the requirements were more stringent and penalties were more severe in Australia than the Bahamas, where Miss Heard had previously smuggled the dogs on a prior occasion. I understand that Miss Heard later told the court in Australia that I had told her it was fine to bring the dogs into Australia. That is false. I never told her this. And this is the allegation that Miss Heard sought to procure false evidence by Kevin Murphy and Kate James for the purpose of the criminal proceedings in Australia. That's interesting that this is not the only country she has smuggled the dogs into before. Apparently there's been smuggling in Bahamas. So these dogs are just being smuggled all over the world. And that might even make it even worse for those dogs to go into Australia. I don't know how far apart the dogs being in the Bahamas and then the US and then going to Australia was, but if Australia is really trying to keep diseases out, those dogs going to many different places may have them bring diseases in, whether you knowingly did it or not, as far as whether you knew that they had any diseases or anything like that. But that's why there's things in place so that if for some reason you don't know, it gets figured out before they're allowed into the country. Okay, factual findings of the UK High Court, the Boston plane incident, which happened in May of 2014, which was the flight from Boston to LA. It says, Mr. Depp kicked Miss Heard in her back and threw a boot at her. Later, passed out in the bathroom and was ill as a result of consuming alcohol and cocaine. Depp's second witness statement stated that he had had alcohol before and during the flight, but was merely drawing in his sketchbook, ignoring Miss Heard, who was harassing or arguing with him. He changed his testimony after being confronted with the text his counsel had withheld. The court made its finding on this incident based on the communication of Depp and Depp's bodyguards, intentionally withheld and inadvertently disclosed text from Depp to Paul Bettany. I'm gonna properly stop the booze thing, darling. Drank all night before I picked up Amber to fly to LA this past Sunday. Ugly mate. No food for days. Powders. Half a bottle of whiskey. 1,000 Red Bulls and vodka. Pills. 2 bottles of Champers, which is champagne, on a plane. And what do you get? An angry aggro engine in an effing blackout, screaming obscenities and insulting any F who got near. I'm done. I am admittedly too effed in the head to spray my rage at the one I love. For little reason as well, I'm too old to be that guy. But pills are fine. From Duders to Amber, Duders said, hey, he's up, he's much better, clearer. He doesn't remember much, but we took him through all that happened. He's sorry, very sorry, and just wants to get better, which allows us to make him follow up on that promise. Duders also said he is teary. He doesn't want to be a F up anymore. His words. He's got bad indigestion this morning, but otherwise all right. He's gone back to sleep for a bit. Spoken to C. We're going to set him up with Dr. Kipper on Wednesday, hopefully. He won't be skipping it this time. So, in the text that Depp sent to Bettany at the top, there is things that, I can't remember if it's in the UK trial or if it was in a deposition. I think it was in the UK trial, where he says that Powders, he assumed he was talking about cocaine. And the Duder stuff, he says he would like to placate Amber. And they had decided a long time ago to just, whatever you need to say to make us avoid an argument or a fight, just do that. Because if she's not right and you don't agree with the things she says or you go against her, it just starts arguments and fights and all that. So that is what Depp says that Duders was doing. Now, the Duders text didn't come in trial. And there's hearsay, but there was also questions about how some of these things got extracted because they were like in a spreadsheet format and not an actual text format. Kind of like this right here is like in a text format. These are just like typed out kind of thing. I don't know if that was ever fixed, but so that might have been a reason that they couldn't come in. But also, if Duder's texts supported Amber's position on this Boston plane incident, they could have called him as a witness. I don't know why they didn't call him as a witness. Maybe they knew he was going to say that, yes, they were placating, or that it wasn't going to be worth it because then he could be questioned by about things with other things, and that he wasn't really going to be a good witness for Amber. And you can also remember that Gina Deuters was the one that Eve Barlow got kicked out of the trial by lying and doctoring a post from like a year prior. And while that wasn't brought up, and it was brought up in a horrible manner when Judge A asked Gina Deuters if she had watched portions of the trial. She said yes, and so that's why she was excused. It just so happened that the way it was brought up for a judge to even ask that was playing dirty. But the rules are, if you're going to give witness testimony and all that, you can't watch things prior to, because they do not want you to go off of things that have already been stated. They want your true account, not just being like, oh yeah, what they said. So the thing with the Boston plane incident as well, there is a audio clip of him like moaning that it doesn't have the metadata for, and it is assumed that that is actually not from this plane incident, but it's actually from the Bahamas when he was detoxing. So, did Depp do drugs and drinking on this plane trip? Yes. Did he kick her? I don't know. And he said he might have blacked out, or he was screaming obscenities and insulting people. That does not show that he actually physically did anything to her. Also, where are the other people that were on this flight? Where are the witnesses to all the stuff that he did to her? Where is the flight attendant that had her wrist and kind of like twisted, or was like, oh, do you know how many pounds it takes to break a human hand? Which apparently he also said in Hicksville, according to Amber. So there's a lot of things with this. There's not a whole lot to back any of this up, or really say that it isn't. It's just, it's probably the incident that has the least amount of information out of all the incidents in this case. So let's move on to the next incident. Okay, so this is Stephen Deuters' witness statement that he gave in the UK trial. I think that it would have been pretty similar, if not the exact same, if he were to be a witness in the Virginia trial. So this is what he said about the Boston flight incident. That was on May 24th, 2014. So, Amber, after drinking heavily, Depp threw objects at Miss Heard, causing her to retreat to a different seat. Depp then provocatively pushed a chair at her as she walked by, yelled at her, and taunted her. When Miss Heard stood up, Depp kicked her in the back, causing her to fall over. Depp threw his boot at her while she was on the ground. Then Depp continued to scream obscenities until he went into the bathroom of the airplane and passed out. That is what Amber is claiming that Depp did on this plane. He then goes to say in paragraph 8, I accompanied Mr. Depp and Miss Heard on the flight on this date from Boston to Los Angeles along with Mr. Jerry Judge, Keenan Wyatt, who also worked for Mr. Depp. Mr. Judge and I were able to see Mr. Depp and Miss Heard throughout the flight as our seats were facing them. Mr. Depp and Miss Heard were sat at the central table on the airplane. A diagram of the layout of the airplane is exhibited at and let's go to that diagram. Okay, so here is the diagram in which Deuters had drawn to give the what the inside of the plane looked like. So this is where the gallery was. Then you would have Stephen Deuters right here, Jerry Judge over here, which were facing this way, where they could see Amber Heard and Johnny at the central table. And then we have Keenan Wyatt over here. He wouldn't have seen it just from his seat because his back was faced to them. He might have could looked around and things, but Deuters and Jerry Judge could definitely see. And then we have this countertop here, and then we have the seat across from Jerry empty, and then the two seats on the other side of the central table, they were both empty, that were across from Amber and Johnny. Then there's a bench right here, there's a bed over here, and then the bathroom is here. So this is how this is set up. So now that we kind of have the outline and the diagram of what the plane looked like, let's go into what he said next. Deuters then says in paragraph 9, the account relied upon above is completely untrue. As I was sitting on the flight, I could see that Miss Heard was speaking at Mr. Depp in an increasingly aggressive manner while she was focused on his notebook, within which he often wrote or drew when flying. At this point, I had my headphones on, so I could not hear the specifics of what she said, but I could see her gesticulating, and I could tell from her manner that her voice was raised. She continued to, I guess, yell at Mr. Depp or harass or argue where he did not engage with the abuse he was receiving. So, kind of like in the trial in Virginia, Depp seemed like he just focused on his sketching and just tried to not engage with her, just try to ignore her while she's acting in a certain way. Okay, moving along with more of his statement. Paragraph 10. At some point, Miss Heard stood up, and when her left side was towards Mr. Depp made a playful attempt to tap her on the bottom with his shoe. From where I was sitting, I do not believe that Mr. Depp made contact with Miss Heard, given the position in which Mr. Depp was sitting. It would have been impossible to kick Miss Heard in the manner in which she has described it. The level of movement would not have been possible from Mr. Depp's seated position, given the layout of the airplane. However, Miss Heard took great offense at what was clearly a harmless gesture and increased her abuse of Mr. Depp in an extremely unpleasant manner. By this time, I had taken my headphones off, and I could hear Miss Heard shouting at Mr. Depp. I cannot recall the specifics of the abuse, but I do remember her making out that the attempted tap was a significant issue. So, when Deuters is talking about abuse here, and Amber doing it to Johnny, he is just talking about verbal. And were any of us there to watch the little kick, tap, whatever it was, depending on who is describing it? No. But if what Deuters is saying is true, it almost sounds like the little playful tap, or I don't know if anybody, where sometimes if you get up or whatever, and maybe you're going off to the restroom or something, and your husband or boyfriend or whoever, like, just kind of like taps you on the butt, and it's almost like playful, maybe even flirty, or whatever. Now, I don't know if he was being flirty. Maybe he was just trying to lighten the mood. But it was not the time to try to be flirty or playful, because Amber was in a very serious mood. Could she have been chewing him out about the drugs and drinking the night before this plane incident? Possibly. She might have even had every right to do that, depending on if he said he wasn't going to, or whatever it was. We don't know what she was yelling at him for, nor do we know if the tap was playful or flirty, or if it was more of a kick. We weren't there. We can just form our own opinions about that particular thing. So let's see what else happened. At this stage, Mr. Judge and I decided to intervene in order to attempt to calm down Miss Heard, who was now hysterical and was shouting at both of us words to the effect of, "Did you see him kick me?" Mr. Judd took Miss Heard aside, as he often had to do when Miss Heard regularly lost her temper, and attempted to calm her down in another part of the airplane. I believe I spoke briefly to Mr. Depp, and he then retreated to the bathroom of the plane, where he remained for the rest of the flight. This was a common theme on multiple times when Mr. Depp was abused by Miss Heard. He would take himself away from the situation, often to a bathroom, and lock himself out of harm's way. During the course of their relationship, I remember Mr. Depp telling me that he would lock himself in a bathroom on multiple occasions, and I remember turning up to find him locked in a bathroom on one occasion, although I cannot remember specifically when this was. Paragraph 12, at no point did Mr. Depp kick Miss Heard to the ground, nor did he throw a boot at her. Further, it is alleged that he pushed a chair at her. This did not happen and would have been impossible in any event, as all the chairs in the plane were fixed to the floor, as has been the case in all flights in which I have traveled. Okay, so in paragraph 11, we did know that Johnny would flee to a bathroom or a bedroom, another penthouse, and sometimes he would just leave the penthouses altogether and go to Sweetser. So him doing that in this situation on the plane to go to the bathroom, because there's really no other place to escape if this is happening, isn't far-fetched, because we know that he has done this before. So that seems very logical. And then on this last part, the pushing a chair, which she has also stated that he threw a chair. Either way, any movement of a chair on an airplane is not going to happen. The chairs don't move. Because if they did when you were in the air, that could really hurt somebody. And they would be moving everywhere. It would be a big danger for that stuff to happen if things weren't screwed down. So that part has never made sense. Now, if this part's not true, which it just can't be, then does that mean everything about this incident is not true? Maybe, because why lie about that? Like, that's a big lie. That should be something, even if you were going to make up this story, you went a little too far with your lie to try to make it seem worse. Because now you've just said something that is absolutely not true. And it makes it to where you have to question the entire story. And that's the deal with credibility. You can't expect people to believe everything you say when you say something that is clearly untrue. So once you say the untrue thing, people go back, and even if they were believing you up until that point, once you say that, they're like, well, if she said that, like, is anything she's saying real? So whether it was real or it wasn't real, you mess up when you exaggerate. And you're no longer credible. Nobody's going to believe your story, even if it is the truth. And they're definitely not going to believe you because you're lying. So I don't know why she doesn't think of that. I guess she just thinks everybody is dumb, or she can play everything off, or just nobody's going to hold her accountable. And she can just continue to cry wolf. Immediately after the flight, Miss Heard continued to insist that Mr. Depp had kicked her, both to Mr. Depp and to me and to Mr. Judge. This was the exact word she used when she described the incident to me and to Mr. Judge and Mr. Wyatt, despite the fact that the incident took place as described above. The following day, on the 25th of May, Mr. Depp asked me to try to mollify Miss Heard and say whatever was needed to placate her. I cannot remember exactly what he said, but it was to the effect, given Miss Heard's extreme volatile nature, I thought it was best to try and engage with her on her own terms and simply apologize for what she was alleging had happened, hence my use of the word kicked, which is the word Miss Heard herself had used. As I have made it clear, Mr. Depp had not kicked Miss Heard. By this stage, I had learnt from my interactions with Miss Heard that her anger was a constant issue. Accordingly, I always tried to simply engage with her on her own terms and to be as nice as possible. So this is kind of what we were talking about, that Depp would tell Deuters to just placate her, just whatever you think she wants to hear, just say that. And this is what Deuters is saying he was doing. And since he did give this statement in the UK, my guess is when it came to Virginia, they knew that he was going to say the same thing. So therefore, they were not going to put him on the stand. And because they weren't going to put him on the stand, or didn't put him on the stand, this is exactly why Deuters' texts could not come in. Because he was not going to be there to testify, to say, yes, I said that, or no, I did not say that. But if he would have taken the stand at any point, Heard's lawyers could have questioned him about this. That's how they could have gotten in these hearsay texts, but they didn't do it. So why do you think that they did not put Stephen Deuters on the stand? Let me know in the comments what you think about what the reasoning was. And should there have been another way to get these texts in to back up Heard's story? Because if they really needed this story to make that incident true, then why wouldn't they put somebody that text her these things? And especially since they want to go on all these interviews after the trial and say, we couldn't get in the text that said, when I told him he kicked you, he cried. When they're talking about Mr. Depp's assistant that sent this, Stephen Deuters is that assistant. So they want to say, oh, we couldn't get this in, we couldn't get this in. Yes, you could have, Elaine. Yes, you could have, Amber. You just didn't do what was necessary to get it into the trial. Because either it was false or you didn't want him on the stand talking about everything else that he knew, because it wouldn't look good for Amber. So you just want to say, oh, we have this text, we have this text. You don't get to do that. You had your chance to put him on the stand and question him about it and get this in, and you did not. So to everybody watching the video, let me know what you think. Comment down below. And we will continue to look more into this incident a little bit more if we can, along with other incidences when they come up, and see what the appellate court has to say about this Boston plane incident. Factual findings of the UK court, Bahamas, in August of 2014. This is when one of the times that he had gone to the Bahamas to try and detox off the oxycodone, and says Mr. Depp visited the island he owned in the Bahamas in order to try and rid himself of his addiction to the Roxys. Miss Heard went with him. So too did a registered nurse, who is Debbie Lloyd. Miss Lloyd stayed on a separate part of the island with the rest of the staff. There came a point when Dr. Kipper flew out to the Bahamas to assist Nurse Lloyd in helping Mr. Depp cope with withdrawal symptoms. Mr. Depp assaulted Miss Heard by pushing her on at least one occasion, the court also held. His feelings toward Miss Heard vacillated wildly. At times he was extremely fond of her and grateful to her. At other times he imagined that she was the cause of his pain and that her actions increased his torment. I say imagined because there is no evidence that Miss Heard was anything other than salacious and following strictly the regimen prescribed by Nurse Lloyd and or Dr. Kipper. Now, according to Johnny, he didn't want Amber to go on this because he didn't want her to see him go through it. It wasn't going to be a good experience, because if anybody knows anything about detoxing, it is painful. It is mentally exhausted, emotionally exhausting. It makes you sick. It just is not a pleasant time for the person that is detoxing, or most of the people that are even around trying to help. It's just not. And you can ask anybody that has been around people that have detoxed. Nurses and doctors will probably tell you that they get abused verbally all the time. But he did not want Amber to go. His sister was going to go, but instead of his sister, Amber took her place. And it is said that Amber would not give him his withdrawal medicine when things were getting really bad. She would withhold it. So he needed her out of there. He needed Nurse Lloyd and Dr. Kipper to come and deal with everything, get her off the island. He's like, I'll put you in a nice hotel. You can have your friends. Like, I'll pay for y'all to have your wine and spas and all this stuff. But he just needed her to go because she was making things 10 times worse than and so she did. She left, and her friends went and had the wine and the spa day and were put up in the hotel and all this stuff. They got all the pampering, and it was all paid for by Johnny. And so that is kind of how everything went down. Yes, he did apologize for to her, and he didn't want to upset her, or he was just saying, you know, I love you, and all that. But that is the drama that kind of went down in the Bahamas.